Hi, everybody. I hope you are doing day here in Atlanta. I hope the weather is better where you are. And Kristen is about to join us. And yeah, so let's see. Where are you, Kristen? Hi there. There
Hi,
you are.
here I am.
How I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Not so rainy day. Excited to talk about estate planning.
I know. I feel like everybody is just like obsessed with talking about the rain here in Atlanta these days.
Yeah, it's
Um,
true. It's true. I feel like it's just like a topic of conversation. Like, what do we talk about anymore? It's like
I know.
COVID, dying, estate
And
planning, rain. It's
my
exciting.
husband and I have like made a pinky promise that when we get older, we don't just talk about the weather. Like that is my in-laws' obsession is talking about the weather. Sorry to my mother and father-in-law if you're listening, apologies, but it is. So, we're not going to talk about the weather today. We're going to talk about we're going to get this estate planning party started. And I know that people maybe don't think that estate planning plus party go together, but I do. I'm
They don't
sure
know
you do.
us.
Exactly. So, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself? You're way better at it than I will ever be.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Kristen Rajagopal. I am the owner and managing partner of Bequest Atlanta Estate Planning. We specialize in demystifying estate planning for busy families and also with helping families with probate or estate administration after a loved one dies.
There you go.
There you go.
So, there
That's
you
me.
go. And you live in Atlanta,
I live in
just
Atlanta.
like,
I live in Morningside.
yeah.
I've got two little boys. One is four in pre-K and currently quarantining at home because of the
Oh
COVID
no.
exposure, but he's fine.
Okay.
And a first grader at Morningside.
Yay. And well,
Yeah,
the quarantine is real these days. The
it is. It's
quarantining
just
is
like,
really real. Yeah.
you just gotta
Yeah.
stay flexible. I'm not even,
Yeah.
nothing phases me anymore. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
I
cool.
know. I
Now you're
know.
home.
Exactly. Exactly. Again.
Yes, here we are. Yeah.
So I'll bet that though that having kids helps give you a different perspective around estate planning because you and I talked about, a couple of things we want to make sure that we highlight today in demystifying estate planning. But, one of the things is people always thinking I'm too young, I don't have to worry about this. And they sort of just want to like go into like the
Yeah.
witness protection program anytime somebody like mentions estate planning.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, to address your first point, I definitely think that having kids helps me with the perspective on estate planning. Like, if you think that my husband and I haven't had the argument about who the guardian of our kids should be, you're
Oh my
wrong.
gosh, okay.
Like we had this argument like 2 days ago. We're getting on a plane and I am just like all of my clients. I'm like, where's my will? Like, is everything
Yeah.
in place? Kids aren't coming on the plane, or my kid's going to be okay? And like, I understand that moment of panic. I understand that conversation. I understand the implications. And also, as a business owner, like I know that you and I both run our own businesses. I think that gives me a great deal of perspective as well as, not only a
Yeah.
parent, but a working parent business owner.
Yeah, exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that that's so important to tackle because we have both seen ways and instances and sort of case studies of when it has gone wrong without proper estate planning. And
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. Like, I don't try to scare people into doing their
yes,
estate plan because I think that people are already scared enough about the process. But
exactly.
God knows I have seen every horror story, and I know you
Yeah.
have too. And I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people think, well, I'm not ready to decide this yet, or like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and kind of assume that things might work out if they don't make a decision. But the fact is, things work out terribly if you don't make a decision. And
And
so, even if you're
yeah.
not positive about what your decision should be, at least like make some sort of choice, and then we can change it in 2 years if you're
Exactly.
not comfortable anymore.
Exactly. And that's what I also think is like it's not a one and done. It's like a living, breathing, like I think of an estate plan like a house plant. Like you've got to like nurture it and water it every once in a while, maybe give it some sun. Like I'm not great with
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my goal is to draft an estate plan that people aren't stressing about because we're busy working parents. Like, the last thing people want to do is think about their will all the time. But,
yeah.
my most busy day of the year is usually the Monday after Thanksgiving. People changing their mind about their guardians and their executors. Like, they spent a long weekend
Oh my
with their
God.
great aunt, and they're like, no, no more.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. That was a question I didn't even think to ask. What is your busiest day of the year? But that is hilarious. So
Yes, yes.
I think one thing I'd love to do is I think the word estate like really confuses people. And they think, I don't have a house in the Hamptons or, a big mansion and like, so I don't have an estate.
Yes.
So could you like break it down for people and like what does that mean?
Yeah, and I think it's such a good question and a really common question. So
Yeah.
thanks for asking. So estate basically means the stuff that you own when you die. Like, we all have stuff that we own. And when you die, that becomes your estate. In
Right.
Georgia, the threshold for not having to go through probate, so probate is the process of proving a will or going through administration when you don't have a will with the probate court.
Right.
The threshold for having to do that is $10,000 in Georgia, which, if I had $10,000 in my wallet, that would be a lot, but like, most people's cars are worth more than $10,000. So almost everybody who dies in Georgia is going to have an estate. So it doesn't mean like,
Wow.
oh, my palatial estate that I own. It just means
Yeah.
your stuff. And it's going to be a
Yeah.
problem if it's worth more than $10,000.
Yeah. And even though a lot of assets do fall outside of probatable estates, I think life insurance, other assets,
Retirement. Mhm.
retirement accounts, exactly. I think all of us could probably scrap together $10,000 worth of assets.
Right, absolutely. And like, personally, I am aghast by that limit. Like, I think that that is
That's
insane that it's
insane.
$10,000 because it just creates complications for people who really truly don't have enough money to be going through the probate process in Georgia. I
Yeah.
think it's really too bad that
Yeah.
that's what it is, but that's what we're dealing with, and that's what we have to plan for.
Yeah.
And you're right that a lot of things are not meant to go through probate, like life insurance and retirement. But I know you've seen this, that if people don't designate beneficiaries, then those assets could wind up going through an estate process, a probate process
Yeah.
as
And
well.
it just like it just makes me so upset for families when this could have been preventable. Like we had just added beneficiaries or updated beneficiaries to the accounts. Like this could have all been avoided. And it is such an expensive process or can be going through probate and a long process. I've now been executor twice personally,
Yeah.
and one in Georgia, one in New York. Don't ever recommend New York. Friends, don't let friends die in New York. That's my like bumper sticker. But I'm kidding, but serious. But it is such an expensive and long process. So it is so important, and that is a very, very low limit. So it just
Yeah.
puts forth that call to action to get your
Yeah,
stuff
I think
together.
you're right. And like, in that vein, when people say estate planning, it's not always clear what we mean by
Yes,
that. Like, so let me
exactly.
tell you what it means
Yes.
for me in my process. So it means planning for your whole estate. So it means like a will, which is what most people think of. It could
Hmm.
mean a trust. Um, it means a healthcare directive and a power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
So not only planning for after you die, but also planning if something happens to you and you're alive but incapacitated, can't manage your own stuff, which is super important.
Yeah.
And the other piece is what you touched on already, is the beneficiary designations on life insurance and retirement. And if you do it all at the same time, it can sound daunting, but actually it's so much easier because
Yeah.
you're making a wholesale decision for all of your assets. We go over all of it. And then I can give recommendations like, hey, why don't you change your life insurance beneficiary to be the trust for your kids so they don't
Yeah.
get a big check at 18. So we're doing like a
Exactly.
wholesale review of everything.
Yeah.
And, you know, 3, 4, or 5 hours of your time and you're just done with the entirety of it.
Exactly. And I think you touched on something that not many people think about, from what I've seen in estate planning, are those advanced healthcare directives or advanced directives of healthcare, or they're called different things in different states. I've seen like 30 different ways to refer to it. But basically, you know, in Georgia, it's what your living will,
Yep.
your healthcare power of attorney, and your gosh, I'm blanking.
Yeah, your
There's
financial power of attorney. So in Georgia, we actually have a form that covers your living will and your healthcare power of attorney. It's called the
right,
Advanced Directive for
right.
Healthcare, and it's just uniformly accepted at all the Georgia hospitals and doctors' offices
Mm-hmm.
as, you know, nurses and doctors know how to interpret this form. Like,
Yeah.
you know, headline news, lawyers don't always put things in easy to absorb, you know,
Yeah.
form.
Yeah.
But this particular form is pretty straightforward, and all the doctors and nurses in Georgia are meant to know how to read this, and it can say what you want to have done, which, you know, not to make this the most depressing conversation ever, but
we got to put the party in this conversation.
Yes, we're going to get to the party in a minute, Rachel. But like the place where I really see people have a hard time is like, you know, being an executor is terrible, but if you're having to make a healthcare decision for someone
Yes.
and you have no idea what they wanted,
Exactly.
people suffer with that so many years later. So
Oh my gosh.
am a huge proponent of that document.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I tell, when I have friends, especially now, you know, I'm unique in that I've lost both of my parents. And so I've already been through this process, and, you know, but fellow members of the sandwich generation like us, they're like, they don't even know what probate means, what all the jargon. But one thing I really stress is like, okay, first and foremost, let's get the healthcare directives in order. Like, because if something were to happen to your parents right now, like that would be the keys to the kingdom right now. That would help so much. And people are like, oh, I didn't even think about that. But I cannot stress it enough, and I'm sure you do the same.
Yep, totally. Same page.
Same page. And, you know, another thing, I did a post this summer about, it's not just for your parents. If you just had a child that went off to college and they're 18 or older, you know, you need to really think about that for them.
I was just about to bring that up myself, which is that I think it's super important to get this stuff done before your kids go to college. Like, we all want our kids to make great decisions when they're, you know, that freshman frat party, but God knows I didn't. And, you know, you got to just be covered in that situation just in case the worst happens. Like, this is just like planning for the worst so you're prepared. And yes, it's a difficult conversation, but it is so much more difficult not to have the conversation.
Absolutely. We just got a question. I'd love to answer it. Are lawyers the only ones that can help with estate planning?
So the quick answer is no. I see lots of people try to draft their own will. And, you know, not to get too much on my soapbox, but that's where I see the biggest problems with estate planning. And I hate it because I think that we should all be able to draft our own wills. Like, I don't think it should be so complicated, just like I don't think that the limit should be $10,000. But again, this is the world we live in. And if you do not have a will that is signed by 2 independent witnesses who are of the age of majority as witnesses, then it's not a will. Like, it's not like a kind of will. It's just not a will. And if you don't have this document that's called a self-proving affidavit that goes along with the will, that's signed by the person whose will it is, the 2 witnesses, and a notary, then your executor is going to have to go find those witnesses many years later and be like, hey, do you remember signing this document? Like, I don't know what happened yesterday. Like, who's going to remember 20
Exactly.
years later,
I
like
know. I
signing this
know.
random document for a random
I
person?
know.
So, yes, you can DIY a will. It is possible. I honestly like, and this is not just a pitch for my business, like, I don't recommend it
Yeah.
because I've seen, like, talk about horror stories. I have seen like the worst case scenarios
Yeah,
in that
exactly.
situation.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and I've seen so many online will companies propping or coming up in the
Yeah.
last couple of months and years. And while I think that maybe we will get to a place where that is a better solution, I'm just too paranoid that it's not going to cover the broad brush of planning that needs to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I actually like started out my practice more of a proponent of those companies than I am now, just
Yeah,
because I have seen the horror stories over
yeah,
time. Because what happens is like people don't know how to sign it right. These companies don't tell you how to sign it. And
yeah,
also, these companies are run nationally, but
yes,
um, estate planning is a state-driven, state
exactly. State
law-driven
specific. Yeah,
beast, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, if someone in New York is drafting a template will for everybody in the United States, like, what are the odds that they really understand the nuances of Georgia law? Like,
Exactly.
I've seen it go really wrong.
Exactly. And, one of the services that I provide is helping people with comprehensive, end of life planning. And I'm careful to use the word estate because I don't want to insinuate that I'm an attorney because I'm not. But I write very carefully in there. I want my services to enhance and complement the work that you're doing with an attorney, with your financial planner, so that everything is buttoned up. Yeah, there
Totally.
are things that aren't traditionally addressed in estate planning, which I can help clients with, but I want to make sure that this is under the guidance of an attorney with your financial planner. So everything is all right and kosher.
Yeah, for sure. And like, we have worked on clients together, and I
Yeah.
do think that having a team is the best approach. Like having
Yes.
someone like you, having a great financial advisor, so that we're all looking at it from all the different guises. Like I can be
Exactly.
myopic, just because I see a certain aspect of estate planning, and I know you do too. So it's
Yeah.
good to have kind of the wraparound
The
service of us all looking
continuum
at
of
it.
care.
Yes,
That's what
oh,
I
the
like to.
continuum of care. Yes.
That's what I like to call it. Um, but and one thing that I really love about your model is your flat fee approach. I just think that is brilliant and was one of the reasons I was so drawn to you. I feel like I'm professing my love or something, which I am, but
I feel it too.
but I love that because I think that that is one of my biggest gripes in with when I've been in probate situations, when I've been in estate planning probations is situations, is not being able to really understand how much this is going to cost. Um,
Totally.
and
Yeah. I mean, yeah. When I started my firm, I was my own target audience, right?
mhm,
Like busy working parent who just needs jobs done for me,
right,
basically, right?
right.
And so, like, real life example, I had a plumber over here at my house like not an hour ago. And there's some issue, and I was like, how much is this going to cost? And he,
Oh no, I'm here. No, I'm here.
there you are.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, good. It's somewhere in the range of, $200 to $200,000. Do you think I would have hired him? Of
Yeah,
course not. Like you need to
exactly.
know how much things are going to cost. And I think that some lawyers think of the legal profession as some like higher calling where we don't need to say exactly how much things are going to cost. No, like we're all
Yeah,
consumers. We want to
right.
know roughly what things are going to be. And like better yet, let me tell you exactly what it's going to
Yeah,
cost
yeah. And
so
I
you know
mean,
what you're getting into.
exactly. And I do understand with probate, like things are going to come up, the issues, other duties as assigned, there are going to be problems. But I think just having a range sometime is like, okay, this is going to cost between $3,000 and $6,000. All right, boom, I
Totally.
got it. Like I can add
Yep.
that to my spreadsheet and that at least gives me some sort of range. So,
Yeah. I mean, you just have to like think of your clients as you think of yourself. And I
Yeah.
know you do that too with your own hourly pricing and, flat fee packages and
Yeah.
your in lieu of flowers
Yeah.
package. Like I love that you're truly giving like a service for a very defined fee, which
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we want, right? Like that's what I want
Exactly.
as a consumer.
Yeah. And and I'm not gonna diss on estate planning attorneys too much, but one of my big gripes is when attorneys hold the will hostage for families. Like that makes me crazy bananas. And I hope you feel the same way, but if there's an attorney out there who does that, and I tell clients, find somebody else.
You mean like after they sign the will, they
Yeah.
hold it until they die so that they'll be the probate attorney?
Yes.
No, that's
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yes.
First of all, like I would never want the responsibility of having all those people's will. Like that would just like I couldn't sleep at night. Heck
Oh
no.
my gosh, I know. But
And
I have
also
learned
like back to the consumer thing, like everyone should be able to work with who they want to work with. Like that's just
exactly.
not
Exactly.
reasonable.
And I tell clients, like, get a couple of quotes. Find somebody who you feel comfortable with, who your personality works with, like all the things. So,
Definitely.
all right, we have another question. Do either of you offer consultations on what happens with people's debts after they die? More specifically, who do debts get passed along to? And that is a great question that I get a lot. So
Yeah.
do you want to
So
answer this?
yeah, I mean, I'll tackle the legal part and you tackle the practical.
Yeah.
So legally, statutorily, there is a defined list of what debts get satisfied in what order in Georgia. So this is all written down in Georgia law. After someone dies, credit card companies, other secured debt and unsecured debt, they will try to make you pay the debts and they will have zero gripes in asking for the money, even if you are not responsible for it. So
Exactly.
my best advice is gather all the information you can on debts. Talk to a lawyer about what order they're meant to get paid in, and then maybe
Hmm.
work with me or work with Rachel on actually paying down the debt. I'm sure you've seen this, Rachel. It's negotiable,
Yes,
you know.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's negotiable. And, one thing I tell clients is to start. I provide a spreadsheet to clients that we work on together, and it has like a whole, like, where are the assets, where are the liabilities, where are the debts, who are the beneficiaries, so they can start organizing that stuff. But I tell clients, don't pay anything out of your personal account. Like,
Mhm.
and just tell people, listen, we're still getting things figured out. I haven't been appointed or what have you. I don't have access to funds. You're just going to have to hold your horses. People can wait. You have time to figure it out and get the best advice to move forward. Nothing's going to burn down. So
Yeah,
just
absolutely. And
press
credit card
pause.
companies are great at breathing down your neck and telling you that you owe money. But I'll tell you absolutely that they almost never get paid after someone dies. Like
Yeah.
they absolutely can wait. And there's a whole statutory scheme about the timeline for them getting paid. So
Yeah.
you're supposed to publish in a newspaper about the death for 4 consecutive weeks. After
Right.
those 4 consecutive weeks, they have 3 months to stay in priority position for payment, and then you have a number of months to sort out what the debts are before you start paying the beneficiary. So like all of this is really well defined under Georgia law.
Right.
And anyone who tries to pressure you into paying for someone else's debts, first of all, they don't have ground to stand on. And second of
Exactly.
all, as long as you understand legally what they're allowed to and not allowed to ask for, you're going to have a lot more confidence in representing the estate.
Exactly. Exactly. So I just tell everybody, pencils down, press pause. We'll get to you when we get to you. So there's no
Absolutely.
fire, and we'll figure it out. So with that, I always like to talk about like what's hot and what's not as part of these conversations.
I'm
And
excited.
and in our world, or your world more, is the new estate tax proposals. And I'd love to just simmer that sauce down a little and
Mhm.
let people know like how that might affect current future estate planning.
Yeah, so great question. And a lot of people are really concerned about it. And I don't usually like to work people up, but I think that some people have a reason to be
Yeah.
concerned. So the people who should be worried are the people who are up at the estate tax threshold right now. So the threshold is around $23 million for a couple. If you and your spouse have somewhere in the neighborhood of $23 million, pretty soon you're probably going to have to pay a whole lot of estate tax if you
Yeah.
don't settle that situation. Um, it's about to get cut in half,
Right.
almost certainly.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't get cut in half with this new proposal, it's going to get cut in half within the next couple of years. It's due to sunset in the next couple of years, back
Mm-hmm.
down to half. So if you have, let's say, $10 million, let's also have a conversation because that's going to be a different planning technique.
Right.
And I'm talking for a couple.
Yeah.
It's going to be a different planning technique, but it definitely anywhere in the neighborhood as a couple, 10 to $23 million, we should be having a conversation about how to move money and what sort of trust we should be establishing now.
Right.
Because that is actually, I mean, I think that a lot of planners like to say it's an emergency, but this actually might kind of be an emergency um, because if you do not form this type of particular trust by the time the law is signed, then you're going to be out of luck.
Yeah.
Usually you have like an implementation period, like before January 1st, law is signed October 15th, do it by January 1st, you're fine.
Right.
On this particular one, the way that it's written, if you don't get it done, this particular type of planning done, by the time the law is signed, you're going to be out of luck.
Gotcha. And
Yes,
so,
but who should not worry? Who should not worry is
me.
the rest of us. Yeah, who
million,
you get
so.
me, right? So like the rest of us who are kind of in the making ends meet working professional sort of situation,
Yeah.
you're not going to have to worry about it. This is really for the people who are planning for generational wealth and trying to, I don't want to say get around estate taxes because that sounds like I'm being judgmental about it. I think the 40% of estate taxes is a lot of money. I wouldn't want to pay
Right.
that either.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people who are really needing to think about the estate tax avoidance, those are the people who need to worry about this law.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's not pants on fire time, but almost maybe a little.
Yeah, like some people's pants may be feeling a little bit hot. My pants are like very cool. Pants are cool. We're not.
Cold.
Mine are like freezing
frozen,
cold.
So I'm
Very cold pants around here, but
Yeah.
so some people's pants are feeling a little bit warmer, and they really should. They should really talk to a lawyer.
Yeah. So I do want to sort of like do like a little show and, well, not show and tell, but tell and tell is, you just did my estate plan for my husband and me, and it was a wonderful process. And I'd love to just share with people how easy it was, how streamlined it was, and stress free. And I think we got a whole new estate plan, and it was like less than a month. It wasn't even a month, I think.
Oh, good. Yes.
So how
I'm
is
so
that
glad.
a
It was
typical
such a pleasure
process?
working with you guys.
Or was it just because I'm amazeballs? Like, which one is it? So how?
Well,
What
it
is
is both. You are amazing, but also yes, that was completely typical. So usually someone will contact me. I'll schedule a first meeting within a week. I'll turn out drafts within a week of that, and then we'll sign a week later. So most processes are 3 weeks, and then it's just done. Yeah.
Would you say that that's pretty typical with estate planners, or is just because you're amazing? Like, is that the bequest process?
That's the bequest process. Like, I think that the cadence of a couple of meetings and making decisions and signing documents, like that's all pretty standard estate planning stuff. But the moving through it in 3 weeks is probably pretty unusual, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of estate planners got really backed up during COVID. Like there's been a lot of demand for obvious reasons, and people got backed up. And like, I don't judge them. I was really, really busy too. I am really, really busy, but rather than keep my clients waiting, I'd rather stay up at night and get it done, to be honest with you. So I always keep people on that 3 week timeline unless they have something they need to think about a bit more, or they have some vacation or scheduling conflict or something come up. But
Yeah.
I say most planners probably take like 6 to 8 weeks, and
Okay.
I try to keep it a little bit snappier. And the
Boom,
reason is,
boom.
again, I mean, I'm trying like to be my own client. Like, what do I want? Do
Yeah.
I want to sit
Yeah.
around talking about dying for several months? No, I don't. I
Yeah.
want to just
Yeah.
like move it through.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that will hold it up is you deciding who's going to be the guardian and those
Sure.
key decisions. And if you're trying to decide and you select somebody or you want to ask somebody, make sure you have a conversation with them. That's just a little tidbit of, little advice. But, I know that is a very important decision and one to be made carefully. So I think my
It
caution would be,
is, yeah, and I agree, but I think a lot of planners will make you come to the table having made all those decisions. Like they'll have like some form you're supposed to fill out before you meet
right,
with them. And to me, like I need to be something more than a robot. Like I need to be able to analyze with the client, like, oh, hey, this is what I've seen with my own clients. This is what I thought about for myself with my kids. Like this is where I've seen it go wrong and where it's gone right.
right.
And so I usually tell clients, like, have an idea, have a preliminary conversation with your spouse or your partner or whomever about what you want to do, but don't feel like you have to have all the answers when we come to the conversation, because I want to be able to add value and perspective.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And I love the process. It was great, and I feel so much better
Yay.
knowing. I mean, even though this was our second will, we got one when our kids were first born, and this was, part two, which a lot of it was driven by I wanted to avoid my kids to avoid probate, hopefully down the road. And
Yep.
I think people get very weirded out, overwhelmed by the thought of a trust, which was one of the vehicles that we've used in our estate plan. Could you break that down for
Yeah.
the average person?
Sure. So I agree that people get really overwhelmed by the word trust. Like even like banks, they're like, whoa, 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 like trust.
I
And I think
know.
it's just like, media. Like you hear about like trust fund babies and all these things.
Yeah,
Like you talk about like people think they don't have a state. People do not think they need trust. But
exactly.
the thing that the trust is doing is it's helping you to avoid probate. So
Yeah,
we, by trust, I mean like a really long document that I write and say, abracadabra, now you have a trust. You sign it, here's your trust. And it's like forming an LLC or forming a corporation. Just like you write this legal document and then it exists. It's like magic. And then we put your assets into it. So like transfer a house in or transfer a bank account in. And then the trust is funded. So funded just means moving your money and assets in. So
right.
as long as you have this properly written trust and as long as your assets are in, then you don't have to go through probate after you die, which is great for a whole host of people. It's not right
Yeah,
for everybody, but it's great for a lot of people.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
I said I do probate work too, and I'll just be totally honest that my first month probate bill for clients, even when I'm being as efficient as I can possibly be, is usually more than it would cost somebody to do a trust. And so I just like to be honest with people
yes,
about that.
yeah, I know. That's what I want to just shout from the rooftops, because I think people are like, oh, I just want a will. Oh, I just want my living will and my healthcare proxy
Yeah.
and my, POA. But I'm like, you are gonna save money down the road. It's like,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I like the number of times, and I know every estate planner will say this, the number of times someone tells me that they want a simple will, I'm like, that's great. I want you to have a simplified process, is what I want
yes,
for you. Like,
yes,
not only a simplified process of writing this will, but a simplified probate process. So, like, if our goal is simple, let me tell you how to achieve it, which for some people is having a trust.
yes, yeah. And it may not be for everybody, but I would just encourage people, just have a conversation. Like, just talk to your estate planning attorney and just explore it. And if it doesn't work for you, fine. But I think just having a
Definitely.
conversation is,
Yeah. And I think that any honest estate planner is going to tell you honestly whether you need it or not. I had a client the other day who came in telling me she needed a trust. She absolutely did not need a trust. She just needed to name some beneficiaries in some different ways on both her retirement life insurance and also her bank and brokerage accounts. And it was going to achieve her goal just as readily as having a trust was going
right,
to.
right.
And so, like any honest estate planning lawyer will not try to steer you in one direction or another, but will just
Yes.
honestly assess, here's what you have, like based on my actual real life experience, this is what is going to be better for you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I love that. And I love that you sort of broke that down. And I'm sure you and I could just nerd out about talking about trust for hours, but we're not going to do that. So, but not everybody is in Georgia.
Yeah.
And even so, not everybody can work with Bequest or
Yep.
work with Kristen. What are some tips you would give to people in other states to find an estate planning attorney to suit their needs?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm a lawyer. I find finding a lawyer to be a really daunting process.
Yes.
Like, where do you look? You're not going to like go to Yelp for lawyers. Like, it's just not straightforward. Most of the like Find Law and like Martindale Hubble, those sort of services, those are pay for play. So it's
Yes.
not always indicative of who's actually a good lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to be so like kind of provincial about it, but I would ask friends and family, like,
Yeah.
hey, who did you use? Did you have
Yeah.
a good experience? And I get those questions all the time for like a friend in Virginia or, wherever. And word of mouth is really probably the best way to find a good
really
estate planning
is.
attorney.
I think that's so true. And that's part of the process of working with me is I help clients find and build their team. And even
Yeah.
if they're in different states, because I have network of professionals that's all over the US. And if it's a state I haven't worked in, I will just reach out to somebody and be like, hey, give me a couple of recommendations. Because I think
And that's so valuable.
yes, it is. Because I think you're right. It can be so daunting. And just having a personal referral and somebody that you can tie your rope to and say, hey, this person recommended them, I think that is an invaluable added
Yeah, I
benefit.
totally agree, especially because, I mean, this might sound too simplified, but you are a person that people can talk to easily, right? And so the
Right.
people that you are asking are probably also people that you could have a conversation with, which
Right.
ultimately will probably lead to a referral with somebody who you're going to be able to have an
Exactly.
open conversation with. Like, this is not somebody who is like collecting a debt for you or like,
Exactly.
suing someone on your behalf. Like, you don't need some shark of a lawyer. You just need somebody who's intelligent and who you can talk to about these really sensitive subjects.
Exactly. And who's fair and who's honest and it's going to customize the roadmap for you. I think that's the kind of attorney you need to find. And that's how
Yeah,
you need to build your team. So, well, I
totally
wish
agree.
we could just, duplicate you to be in every state, but we can't. So, but if you are in the Atlanta area and it is National Estate Planning Awareness Month. I didn't make it up. It's an actual thing. And you have been procrastinating or you need to update your estate plans or just have a conversation, I encourage you to reach out to Kristen at Bequest Law, and I pinned her Insta at the bottom of this live, and just reach out and just have a conversation, get a consultation, and see how it goes.
Well, thanks so much, Rachel. It's been such a pleasure talking to you as always. And,
Yes.
I always just want people to get a will. Like, just get a will. Whatever it's going to take, just get it done. And so questions I can answer, and Rachel, I'm sure you feel the same. Just feel free to let me know if I can be helpful, because
Absolutely.
National Estate Planning Awareness Month, whatever it is,
I know.
I'm just be aware, get a will.
Be aware. I know.
You'll feel better after you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we can just, at the end of the day, I look at what I do is to help give families the space to grieve, either by taking tasks off their plate beforehand or helping them to get prepared, in the interim, I think. And I'm happy to just have a conversation, be a resource, and just educate people. Because if you just do a couple of things, it'll make it so much easier for your family. But if you're in Atlanta,
so true.
reach out to Kristen at bequest.law, and we're going to add this to Instagram TV, IGTV, so you can watch it over and over and over again. Not that anybody would do that, but they could. And Kristen, thanks so much for joining me. It's been, we did put the party in estate planning, and
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Rachel,
oh
and thanks
so
everyone
fun.
for joining. don't go too hard the rest of the month.
Exactly.
Too much. Don't do too much estate planning.
Exactly. All right. Thank you, everybody. Everybody have a great Wednesday. Thanks again, Kristen. I'll
All
talk
right.
with you soon.
Bye.
All
Have
right.
a good
Bye-bye.
one. Bye.